I'm back with a follow-up. So after the video about the nuclear stuff, I'd just like to recap for you. I don't think Trump is going to press the button for a number of reasons. I actually think there are protocols in place and there are enough people to keep him in check over that. But it's also because in the big picture, should America do that, it would unleash Iran and Pakistan and other nuclear powers, no holds barred. I think people all over the world would be going all out to prevent that happening. And I'm sure the CIA and other high-level operatives would be discussing this. I'm sure Israel's been part of the discussions. So I think it sort of keeps things in check. So don't worry too much about that as the biggest problem, all right? So what I'm looking at now is how the world sees Donald and how Donald sees the world. Because we recently had the shithole comments, etc., etc., he doesn't understand the world very well at all, nor does he understand outside of Manhattan very well. And apparently it was news to him that there were white people on welfare. He is such an old bigot that he assumed that everyone on welfare was black. I mean, it's gobsmacking. And he's actually been quoted by various sources. That was absolute news to this man. So he doesn't understand America, let alone the world. So I wanted to do this follow-up now of how he sits in relation to the world 1 year on. Okay? So Trump and the world. How is the world seeing the Donald 1 year on in the pregnancy? The world and in the pregnancy. I meant to say presidency. Oh, that's a classic. I must be getting tired. All right. So here we go. We'll see what the world thinks of Donald 1 year on. Okay, this is going to be a traditional Celtic cross reading. So we start with these three cards. His signifying card in this case. Here we have the Nine of Cups. Okay, so we've seen before, this is a man who's quite emotionally driven and yet has his back to his emotions. So he doesn't even know that he's emotionally driven. You know, that's how unformed he is as a creature. I think you guys actually have a jellyfish in the White House. But he's a very rich jellyfish, and he goes on being quite successful as a jellyfish, my word of the day. But let's see how the rest of the world sees the Donald. Okay, underlying this reading, the lovers. I think we've moved on from the personal and Hope Hicks and Stormy Daniels. I think this is referring to allies of the United States. So that includes, you know, Canada, Australia, the UK, Germany, you know, most of the first world countries, in fact, and now post-war, best friends with Japan and seemingly with China. So this is indicating the unity, if you like, and the respect that other countries had for the United States that had been built up over a long period of time. Of course, there are other parts of the world where the United States didn't behave so well, so for example Latin America, and they would probably have a very different view of that. But nonetheless, the States has a great many allies. Lying across this reading and across this card, nostalgia and the past. So I think up until now, and I think I said this in a previous reading, other countries have been cutting him a lot of slack because they do have respect for the states, or at least the power of the United States. They are not prepared to rip up their agreements and treaties on their side of the fence, even if he is. And so it's looking to the past in relation to positive affiliations with the United States. So underlying this, here are the gals again, women celebrating. Okay, so if we look at this card in the context of the world, the Allied countries, the position for women has moved forward enormously in the last 60 years. And I could tell you stories about Australia in the 50s and 60s that would curl your hair about how conservative it was for women. And it wasn't until the 1970s women could actually open a bank account in their own names and so forth. So what's going on in Saudi Arabia now is really what was going on in a lot of countries we think of as progressive, but 60 years ago. So women celebrating here. Recent past, yes, the Trump acolytes, or the people representing Trump, and there are many of them in many capacities. So although Trump and then Rex Tillerson set about absolutely disseminating the foreign relations structure that had been set up, this is still operational. So in other words, if it was the end of the Trump regime soon, by that I mean halfway through 2018, possibly a lot of the damage could be undone. In other words, people are hanging on to what they believed the United States was about. They're meeting these people who on the one hand might freak them out and they think, oh my God, who are they? But they're also represented by this figure. People who represent Trump and America are very good, talented people who are doing a lot to keep the Allies calm. This isn't happening in a vacuum. There's a lot of ambassadors and diplomats and even businessmen at level saying, this storm will pass, please just be patient. Remember what's gone before. So a lot of people are working very hard to preserve the role of the United States in the world should another president come along shortly. Obviously, if he went ahead and did his four years and then, God forbid, got elected in 2020, it would all be over. So we've got to hope and trust these people are doing their jobs and the goodwill isn't used up all over the world. So, overarching this reading, yeah, this is the world, or a worldly figure looking out. This again reinforces what I was just saying here, which is people are trying to keep their eye on a long-term better result for the world, right? Rather than just this one greedy man who not only is greedy but selfish. He's only concerned with his own comfort, his own power. That's not appropriate as a character profile for the President of the United States. You need a much more sophisticated figure. And frankly, I don't think General Kelly is it. And I really don't think Rex Tillerson is it. I think America needs to really thank the rest of the world for being patient. That's my overriding message on this. And to keep looking outwards, America. Remember, you're part of the world. The world wants you there. Don't worry, we don't blame you all for what's happening. But it's also the job of Americans to look out when there's a lot of pressure to look in by, you know, these import tariffs and all this inward-looking stuff, which, by the way, would sink the stock market. But that might be happening anyway. I'm going to do a reading on the stock market very soon. Okay, so how the world sees Trump is important about looking out, because he, if you're looking at the other part of the question, how does he see the world? He doesn't. He doesn't see past his reflection in the mirror. He's, you know, really a deeply, deeply flawed creature. So coming up shortly, it's not going to be easy, it's not going to be comfortable, it's not going to be pretty. This is his war rhetoric, if you like. I've got the sword, I've got the biggest button, I've got the biggest sword. Yes, honey, but while that's happening, the rest of the world is saying, you've only got the crown for so long, it's already slightly dying on your head. You know, hand of God, storms brewing, he will be kept in check. But this is his attempt to cut through. Okay. Trump and the world, how they see the relationship. People are worried, very worried. Like you guys who comment on this channel are really, really worried. The rest of the world is truly freaked out by the potential for him. In a way, this is a continuation of that nuclear reading. It's really, people are really worried by this, and they see him in Trump Tower as a catastrophe. This card is a catastrophe. So he's not seen as just someone who's ultra-conservative, and it's not like the .com techies just think he's conservative and not really up with the play. It's not as though the military think, oh, well, he doesn't really understand how complex our role is in terms of diplomacy as well. Most thinking people consider this presidency an absolute catastrophe. What's acting on that? The Ace of Pentacles. So reminding you that the aces are a primary source of whatever is talked about. And in this case, it's pentacles and money. So money talks. So apart from other concerned individuals, concerned communities, concerned countries, the stock market, although it's booming, is also very concerned about this presidency. But at the moment, although they can see that he could be catastrophic, they're hanging in for now, and there's some element to watch in the future in regard to this, because remember, as I've said before, pentacles, it can represent fool's gold. Repeating experiences. So we've got to be careful not to keep going down the same path and expecting a different result. The environment for this reading, again, I think on the one hand, Trump is going to withdraw more, but I also see this as the world retreat, waiting for this hell to be over. So again, it's that element of patience, which I think is in everybody's best interest. Patience and calm. When you've got a nutter at the top, people need to be very calm, moving towards, hopefully, replacing him. The outcome, short-term outcome, I don't know. So with the Eight of Wands, lots of stuff coming in, lots of stuff going out. So in a way you could say this represents the web and modern knowledge acquisition and ideas flowing back and forth. So people are panicked on some level. They are staying calm, but they're asking themselves, what the fuck is going on and what can we do? sun and new leader. Okay. I see the sun shining on this reading in terms of Trump and the world. I think the patience will pay off. It is unsustainable. Something has to give and must give, and possibly the Mueller investigation will be it, although, as I've said before, that is quite a long, almost agonizing process. But don't forget, we've yet to see the absolute comets, if you like, that'll come from Mueller when finally these indictments start to flow on through. They will be shining light on what's going on, but I think, horrifying as they'll be, they will shock America, they will shock the world. But the sun is shining. It's like that has to happen in order for things to move on from the tower. And the final outcome is a new leader. All right, guys, so lots happening, as always. I'm so thrilled to have done that. It's reassuring. So that's 1 year on how things sit. Nothing might be really surprising in that, but that's how I see it unfolding. There will be a new leader. There will be a new day. All right. Look after yourselves. Bye now.